guys, it's Amy at Zoe Beck, and I'm going to do my top 10 books that I read in 2020. So, again, these are books that I read this year. Some of them were published this year, but in 2020, but most were not. So I'm going to talk about those, but first I'll talk about a few other little categories I wanted to get through. That's Cooper. So, I'm going to do my most disappointing, like a couple of surprises, and then my most hated book of the year, and then I'll do my top 10. So let's do those first. Yeah, Cooper, you're so helpful. So my most disappointing book of the year was Drive Your Plow Over the Bones of the Dead by Olga Tokarska. So, this is translated from the Poland by, oh, there's too many. Antonia Lloyd-Jones. So, God, I can't do this with you. So she, so this, okay. So this is one of the books that I was enjoying through the beginning part. I really, really liked it. It deals with an older woman in this small little community and how she interacts with people, and one of her neighbors is found dead, and her and the other guy who live there in this little enclave kind of thing area that is usually only open, is mostly, there's only so many people who live there during the winter, so they have to deal with what's going on, and then the other people in her life. So I really enjoyed the first part of this. It was, you know, as a written, I got into it, and again, it's first person narrative, and so you're in her head, and she's a little kooky, which I liked. And I liked this book for most of it until we got near the end, and I would say I almost DNF'd this book at 240 pages out of, what is it, 268 pages. So I was 28 pages from the end, and I nearly DNF'd this. I was so upset by what was happening in a certain scene. And I'm just rolling my eyes and just going, this is ridiculous. This is just ridiculous. That's all I kept saying. Now, it did turn around, and, you know, I was able to give this 3 stars because the ending did work for me by the end. But I nearly DNF'd this right before that. Those, you know, the 20 or so pages before the last 30 pages, I nearly put this book down because I was so disgusted. So, to me, I know a lot of people like this book, so I'm sorry, but this book was the most disappointing because I wanted to love this book, and I really enjoyed it in the beginning, and then it just went downhill for me. And again, I liked the way it came out in the end, but it was really a book that I was hoping to like it all the way through and not hate it so much for a certain period. Because, I mean, I seriously sat it down and almost DNF'd it 28 pages from the end. Anyway, so that's just my most disappointing because I was hoping for much more from that book for myself. Then 2 surprises. I do want to talk about one of the books that I conquered this year. One of my nemesises. For 20 years I've been trying to read Wuthering Heights by Emily Bronte. I finally did it this year. I made it past the dialect issues by listening to audio. And I was surprised that by the end of this book I gave this a 3 as well, but I never expected to. I figured this was going to be a 1 or 2 star because I had so many times I've tried this book. This was my 4th attempt and finally got it done. So I was afraid that I would never finish it. And so it's surprising because I actually understood by the end now why some people like it. Again, it'll never be my favorite book, and you are allowed to do that, but I have my own issues with it. And but I'm surprised still that I did enjoy the experience after I got into it. It did take me a little while, but I'm still glad I got through it, and I can say I've finally read Wuthering Heights, and I'm just glad it's done. Anyway, but really, it was more surprising to me because I did actually enjoy it and want to listen to it. So there was compelling part. I get it. Anyway, my other surprise was a nonfiction, Fifth Avenue 5 a.m., Audrey Hepburn, Breakfast at Tiffany's, and The Dawn of the Modern Woman by Sam Wasson. This was a complete, I bought this book like on a whim that I saw on some ad or some picture somewhere, and this was fantastic. Just a little glimpse of 50s and early 60s Hollywood from the perspective of the directors, the writers, Audrey Hepburn. I mean, not from her, but they talk about her and Truman Capote and stuff, and about Breakfast at Tiffany's and how that the book and then the movie was made, and how what people did in certain things to make that happen. And again, Breakfast at Tiffany's is a favorite movie, so I bought it mostly because of that, because I liked it. So it was such a surprise, and I was just fascinated by this. So anyway, I would say that was one of my best surprises, because I didn't expect to enjoy that as much as I did. And then I don't think it's anybody's gonna be surprised to see the worst book of the year is The Tenant of Wellville Hall by Anne Bronte. I hated this book, and I've hated this book. It took me 5 attempts to get this done. I DNF'd it 4 times. But I finally finished it, and again, I conquered my other nemesis. So right now I don't have one that I know of, but I'm sure another one will pop up that I have issues with. But classics, again, I force myself to read some of them just because I want to be part of the conversation and understand and be able to say why I dislike this. I hated this book nearly from the very beginning, and it is partially because Gilbert, the first narrator, is so unlikable, and I wanted to beat the crap out of him all the time. Sorry about that, but I really hated him. And I hated him through every part that he's ever in, and I don't know if we're supposed to, but I really felt like we were. We were supposed to not think he's great. Although the end to me is so unrealistic and so improbable, I don't know how that all happened. Anyway, and then I think Anne Bronte took so many chances. I think there's so many things here to learn, but it was such a slog for me. It was so hard to read about such dislikable people. And again, that's just my own thing. But really, it was just, I hated Gilbert so much. And then in Helen's part, when she was in her journal in the middle, you know, so again, we're following a woman who comes to stay in the area that's kind of mysterious. We don't know quite what's going on with her. And Gilbert, who is a farmer in the area, he falls for her, and he does a lot of crappy stuff. Anyway, point is I hate this book, and I'm just glad to finally get be able to say I've read that, and I can discuss things about it. So I don't know if that was any coherent, but I don't want to rant too much more because it is my most hated book of the year, but I have ranted a lot about that. So let's get into the good part, the top 10. Wow, I always talk so much, don't I? So I'm going to go from 10 to 1. So 10 is my top 10. Anyway, so the number 1 will be my favorite book of the year. So this is a mixture of nonfiction and fiction. I have 6 fiction and 4 nonfiction in this list. So the first book, or number 10, as we go up, is Defy and Defend by Gail Carriger. This is one of her delightfully deadly novels that kind of come after the Finishing School series. So it's following characters when they're adults. And oh, I just love this. This is one of my favorites, though, of her little novellas of, you know, that come in that are separate from the main novels of her series. This one so far is my favorite because we're following Dimity, and she is sent on a mission to try to save a vampire hive that is falling apart, and she goes with her protector, and they have kind of have this tension between them, and they both are kind of getting to the point where they're not sure if they should make a move or not. So it's really cute that way. And then it has it where they're talking about all the vampires and werewolves in the world, because again, this is part of the Parasol Protectorate series, or not the series, but the world. That's the same world. The Finishing School is within that just earlier. Oh my gosh, I just love this. It was just so much fun, and I love this, and I'm already, like, again, I really want to reread this right now, and I just haven't let myself, but I'm probably going to pretty soon. Number 8 is that right? No, number 9. Sorry. Number 9 is Secondhand Time, The Last of the Soviets by Svetlana Alexievich. So this is translated from the Russian by, I think it's, I cannot get to the late, Bella Shalevik, I think is how it's said. So this is the last of her books that I had to read, and I read it this year. So this was, again, another very powerful oral history of her taking years to get interviews with people who lived during the 90s and to mid 2000s. So I think it was the mid 2000s, or it goes to 2012. So it's like a 20-year period. And it was just always heartbreaking. This is the first one I listened to on audio, but it was just as powerful because they changed, you know, every time another person would talk, it'd be a different voice. I mean, some of the voices, you know, repeated because the cast is, you know, hundreds. So it was really good though. I really enjoyed that. But it's definitely these books, all the ones that she's written that are like these oral histories. I like them because she kind of separates herself out from the actual interview, and you just hear the person telling the story, their story. And I think that is so much more powerful, and I think she does a really good job. And I've given 5 stars to almost all of her books. And so they're definitely books I will return to and revisit, but I haven't yet because I just now finished, I said all of them. So again, that was number 9. Number 8, let's see here, is The Only Plane in the Sky, An Oral History of 9/11 by Garrett M. Graff. So I listened to this on audio as well this year, and it was a multiple cast as well, telling the stories. And this one was just heartbreaking as well. That seems to be a theme for some of my nonfiction this year. But this one, it was so hard to listen to, again, coming from someone who was an adult when 9/11 happened, and remembering how I felt. And I was like in California at the time, and I had my own what happened and what I saw, and then to hear what happened with people there in New York as well as Pennsylvania and other places. And it was just like, it was so hardcore in a lot of ways, because it is an oral history, so it's people telling their story and things they were going through. And I really, again, it was so powerful, and I'm so glad I made myself listen to that. And again, I listened to that like a week or two after, couple of weeks after 9/11 this year, because again, I was on a hold list for it, but it was so worth it. It was heartbreaking. You just have to be aware you probably start crying in your car or wherever you listen to your audiobooks. Number 7 is Hearthstone by L. Catherine White. So this is a fun fantasy that it's like a Pride and Prejudice with dragons. And of course, that's what pulled me in, because Pride and Prejudice is my favorite book of all time. So this one, it follows the Pride and Prejudice plot, but it twists it in such a neat way. She changes names, and she changes a few of the things that happen. But really, it's still the structure of Pride and Prejudice is there between the two main characters. But it's just done in such a fun way. And I really, really enjoyed this book. I read the other 2 books in the series, which are up here somewhere. I don't know. Well, I guess they're right. I don't know. I can't point. Anyway, point is that I did enjoy the whole series, but the first book was just perfection to me. I love this book. I've already reread it at least once. Yeah, I read it once. So, reread it. So I know I'm going to reread it again. I just love this book and the characters, and if you're looking for Pride and Prejudice with dragons, I would recommend that one. Number 6 is, I'm not sure this is gonna, it's not gonna work, is it? Is The Five by Hallie Rubenhold. This is the lives of the Jack the Ripper's women. So this is not really about their deaths so much as the lives of these 5 women who were killed by Jack the Ripper. And I found this book fascinating. Again, this is another one I did on audio through my library. So, or maybe I own this one. I don't remember. Point is, this was really, really good. And this is one I do want to get a physical copy of. I just haven't got around. A couple of these I didn't realize I hadn't bought copies of yet. But it'll be on my list. So, but The Five was just fantastic, because it was showing women in that time period and the struggles of being someone who does not have money, or falls into vice of some sort of, as like alcohol and other things. And again, most of these women were not like prostitutes. I think that's pretty much, she's proven that. I thought it was really well done. They were just women down on their luck, and they were just unfortunately in a place where a killer was able to get to them, which was horrible. So anyway, I thought this was really well done, because it focuses on the women and their lives, and it was fascinating to hear about their lives, and I do need to get a copy of that for my shelves. Let's see here. So, So number 5 is, should not be a surprise to anybody, and that is Alpha Night by Nalini Singh. So this is, book number 19 in the Side Changeling series, or book number 3? Is it 3 in the the second part of the series? But it's still, okay, it's still number 19 to me in my head. I don't know. Anyway, Oh, the Trinity. So that's book 3 in that one. But this follows one of the wolf alphas and how she suddenly has a mate bonds with somebody else with one of the arrows, and it's just, this is one of my favorites, I think, of the series so far. I mean, it's not, again, not my top couple of them, but this is definitely coming up there. I've reread it twice already this year, so that means I've read it 3 times in a year. My physical copy shows up on Tuesday. I might be rereading it again. So it's really great. The only reason it's only at number 5 is because a couple of the books here were just a little bit more powerful to me, but this one was just a great story, a great entry to the series. Again, do not start here. I would start at the beginning, but that's just me. I know it's pretty far into the series, but these books are great paranormal romances, has great world building, and has to do with psychics and shifters and then humans and how they're all vying for power in the world. And I've just loved all these, and this is one of my favorites. So that is why it is a number 5. Number 4 is a book that is amazing. I read this in 2020 just because it was before everything kind of went to hell, and it's hard for me to think of it as in 2020. It feels like I read it the year before that, and that is Empire Grass by Tad Williams. This is book 2 in the Last King of Ostenard series. I love this series. I said, this is book, I'm waiting for the last book of the trilogy, so hopefully we're going to get it this fall. But I read this back in February, you know, trying to get it read, even though I had the book for a while. I just hadn't got to it, but the paperback was coming out in May, so I knew I had to get it done before then because I wanted to make sure I read it. So this is epic fantasy. It's the continuation of the Memory, Sorrow, and Thorn series. Definitely read that first. But The Last King of Ostenard has been really good. The Witchwood Crown and this one were fantastic. And he has the most epic cliffhangers at the end of these books that I'm always like, oh my god, like I need the next book. And of course you have to wait a couple of years for them. But again, we follow Simon in the first trilogy and, you know, his things that are going on. And this is the characters actually from the first book. A lot of them are. Now, there's a lot of new characters. There's tons of characters. This is a huge cast. Like, he is very good in different parts of the world in this. And again, he took a lot of chances, I think, in this book with some of the perspectives and stuff. So I really enjoyed this. Epic fantasy. Just their characters are from the old series to this series as well, so that's why it's just fun. So anyway, that is my book number 4. Number 3 is The House in the Cerulean Sea by T.J. Klune. Oh my god, I love this book. This book, again, another one I have already reread once. So this book is about Linus, who is kind of like, you know, pencil pusher, but who goes and checks on orphanages that have magical children. And so he's pretty good at his job, so he gets sent on he gets sent on this assignment to this special orphanage that has some very special children in it. And he goes there to investigate for a month. And it's his adventure and of meeting the children and the people who are in charge of them there. And it is just sweet. Everybody talks about how sweet it is, and it is, but there's also some really good issues in here, a lot of things that he addresses. And I just love the characters. Linus is definitely one of those favorite characters. I just love him. But I love all the kids. They are just hilarious, all very individual and different, and I just love them all. So I really enjoyed this book. Again, as I said, I'm probably gonna reread this pretty soon too, again. But now I got my own physical copy, so I'm excited about that. So my number 2 was one that, if you saw my video at halfway through the year, this was my number 1. So it has dropped to number 2, but it's number 2. It's still excellent. It's Stamped from the Beginning by Ibram X. Kendi, the definitive history of racial ideas in America. This was a fantastic book, and it's definitely one I will be revisiting, and I had to put it high on my list here because it is still very poignant of the way 2020 went and the things that were happening. This was a book that really helped me come to terms with certain things that I knew but didn't really understand why that would be a problem in history. Like, so, because history is a huge deal, things I'm studying and stuff, but it's great to have something that went through from the earliest parts of the, you know, white men being in America, and then how it's gone to now. So this was just a fantastic history. I think there's so many things in here I'm going to return to. He takes certain people in history and how the views of the time and what they thought, and also how they reacted and how others reacted to what they thought, and that he uses those as kind of points to show the way that the ideas would change. Like, they would make a couple steps forward, but then somebody would change a law, and then everything would go back to even worse than it was before. So I think I think it's required reading. I think it's very, I think it's something a lot of people should be studying and should be reading to see, how these ideas have been, started from nearly the beginning, and then just how, they've evolved with the times, and how much worse it gets sometimes than what it was. And it's just, it was so powerful. It's still, again, one of my favorite books of the year. It just, I had to put it at number 2 because it's still super important, but, and I still will go back and study parts of it, because there's some sections that when I'm reading my presidential, project, I probably will go back and read the sections that are close to that time period, just to see, what was in here. So anyway, I'm definitely keeping this book on my shelf. I'm definitely planning to reread parts of it and things. So anyway, I totally recommend that. And then my favorite book of the year, and I have to say the reason why it beat out that one is because this one was just pure joy to me. This was like, so it makes me so happy just thinking about it, and I just want to reread it again and again. I've already read it once, reread it once. And I mean, I said, I'm a big rereader. Obviously, I've told you, some of my favorite books I've reread already, or I want to right now. And I fight with myself not to reread all the time. But this is a book that it was just so much fun. And I smile when I think about it. And I try to tell other people to read it. And it's just hard to explain why this made me so happy. But The Blacksmith Queen by G.A. Aiken is my favorite book of 2020. This book's, I knew that I liked this author from other books that she read because they're funny, over the top, crazy situations, super dramatic, like nothing like my life. Like, I mean, it's such escapism. But the thing about this one was it had the fantasy elements I liked. It had the blood and gore that I like. It had characters who loved each other but argued all the time, which is not what my family does. We are very quiet, very not like this. But it was just so, like, it was over the top, but it was also kind of real in some points. And so I just enjoyed it because the characters grew. The main character, her name just Keely, is a blacksmith, and her sister is prophesized to be a queen. And so it's like this whole adventure with people who do or do not want that to happen, or why that happened, and then how, Haley gets involved in all that. Oh, she's just fantastic. Just love this book. I don't know how to explain my joy. And again, so it's not epic fantasy, and it's just fun. It's very light fantasy, but it's all the tropes that you kind of get, but they have their own twists and stuff. I've already read the second book, The Princess Knight, that came out this year. I love that book too, but this book just has my heart. This is a book I know I'm going to reread and reread. I just loved it, and I really want to just go reread it right now. But anyway, so those are all my favorite books of 2020. I had I think 20 5-star reads, so I just showed you 10 of them. So I mean, these are the highlights. These are the things that I got a lot out of and I really enjoyed. And I really hope other people will enjoy them too when they get to them. So anyway, what was your favorite book of the year? Were any of these on your list, on your top 10? Let me know. And let's hope that I will read a lot more and a lot better books in 2021 and just add to this great collection. So anyway, I will talk to you guys later. Bye.